Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm gonna teach you about how to create something like, for example, this tentacle using extrusion along a path or a curve. And this is something that I saw in many of your models and you were asking about this, so here we go. So to create something like that, I need to have an object first, and then I need to have a curve, like a curve that is going to be representing this shape. I can create a curve and bend it in such a way that it has like the curves that I want for the tentacle or the tail or whatever shape that you want to be created like this. And once I created an object, a basic object, I'm going to just select a face on it and select the curve and do extrude. Okay, so that's the general overview of how you're going to get to that, and I'm going to show you here how it's done. Okay, so I said first an object and then a curve, so we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to create a polygon cylinder. I'm just going to click on it. Has too much subdivision on the side for me. I'm just going to reduce it because we know we can always go back and smooth the mesh and get the geometry that we want, so we don't add extra geometry, right? Okay, I'm just gonna do probably 8. Yeah, 8 would be good. Okay, so I have my basic geometry, and it could be anywhere in the scene. It doesn't matter if it's in the center, okay? And now I want to create a curve. Okay, so this is new. We haven't talked about curves before. So to create a curve, which is basically a line, okay, you go to this curve and surfaces shelf here. You click on it. It's right next to the poly modeling shelf. You click on it, and then this is the curve that we want. EP curve tool, create a curve, okay? So I'm just gonna click on it, but don't create the curve in the perspective view, okay? It's gonna go crazy, it doesn't know where to create it, it's gonna be all over the place, okay? So hit space once to go to, for example, front view, and here you create the curve by clicking and defining the points for the curve, and Maya is going to do the rest for you. So this is the first line, this is the second, and as soon as I hit this third point, Maya is going to create a nice curve in between them, okay? Don't get obsessed with where you put this curves, like exactly where you put them, because you can go back and fix them, okay? Once you're done with the curve and you're like, okay, this is what I want, just hit enter. Oops. Just hit enter, and then you get your curve, okay? And to go in and change the points of the curve, you can click on the curve and then right click, go to curve points, I want to say. Nope. Okay, so edit point. Okay, if you say edit point, you can see that you see these little tiny X's. You can just click on them and then use W to move them. W is for move, right? Just gonna move them like this, like this. You can also do right click, control vertex, and then you get this extra control over the curve and how it's going to be bent like in different ways. So the same way that you can manipulate the components of object by right click going to face, vertex, and edge mode, you can do the same with the curve, right? But it's just a line. So it has these other components like the curve points and curve control vertex and such, okay? So once you're done manipulating it, you can also go into the perspective view and give it a bend like in this direction as well. Like, you know, I want to push it like this. So yeah, let's say that's the interesting shape that I want to create, okay? That looks good to me. Let's give it a more interesting curve. Okay, here we go. So now I'm gonna do right click, object mode, which in this case is like curve. Okay. So now I have this polygon and I have this curve. All I need to do now is select faces exactly the same way that we did extrusion. Like we started with selecting the faces, right? These are the faces that I want to be extruding, okay? I'm going to select all the faces on the top, and then I'm going to shift click the curve. Okay, so now I have everything ready to do extrude. Okay, so because I selected this curve, when I do extrude, Maya is going to know that I want to extrude along this curve. So I'm going to do shift right click, extrude face. As you can see, nothing interesting is happening here. Why? Because the subdivision is set to 1. So there's no geometry here. So Maya doesn't, it's like, okay, I'm just going to connect the, start of this curve to the end of it because you're not giving me enough geometry. Okay. So to give Maya enough geometry, I'm going to click on this division and add division. So Maya kind of can calculate how to match this object to the curve. Right, so Maya has enough geometry. This object has enough geometry to match to the curve. So I'm just gonna do well, 19 is good. And remember, if you hit like a point that the slider doesn't work, you can always go in and type, right? But you don't want to do like 80 or something. Don't again put extra geometry where you don't need them. If they look bulky for now, that's fine. We're gonna later get to it and make everything smooth. Okay. So now I have this object extruded along this path, okay, and you have some other options here like the offset or thickness, and also if you go to the object mode before you delete history on it, you can see that if you click on the object in the channel box, you see this new build history for poly extrude face. Okay. If you click on it and go all the way down to the list, you can see some other options here like taper. This is a good one. Like if I click on it, so it's active, not here, but here. Okay, if I click on it and then middle click drag to the left and right, you can see that I can taper the tape of this geometry that I created, right? So you can play around with these options and investigate, how they work. And keep faces together on divisions 19, so you can just play around with it. But remember, when you're done and you're like, okay, this is the shape that I want, you want to go ahead and delete the history on this object, because now that it has this extrusion face and everything in the build history, if you delete this curve, I'm just selecting the curve in the outliner. If you delete the curve, your object is going to be deleted. Like if I delete this, you see the object is going to be deleted. So I'm hitting Control Z to go back, undo. So once I'm done with the extrude face options here, and I did whatever I wanted to do here, I'm going to go ahead to the polymodeling shelf and delete history. Okay, and look at here, as I delete history, the build history is now gone. Okay, so now if I go in and delete this curve, just click on it in the outliner and hit delete. So this object is not tied to that curve anymore, so it's not going to get deleted. Okay, sounds cool. And you can always go back in and select like a bunch of faces like this and extrude them to get the nice shapes that you want, right? You can add edge loops here and play around with it, anything. Okay, that was it. Hope you enjoy playing around with extrude along the path.